First, I'm just going to warn, spoiler warning here for Ashita no Joe. I don't think the show really could be ruined with spoilers, but I would still recommend going into it blind for the most part. There are some interesting ideas behind the points leading to the conclusion of Joe and Rikishi's fight, and some consequences that come from it. This fight is obviously iconic, hits really hard for fans of the show because favorite character Rikiishi dies as a result of this fight from injury and frailness driven by his utterly insane weight loss. This fight has long-lasting implications on the show that are pretty easy to understand, but I think there are little bits that add to it that are pretty easy to miss. So let's see what they add. I'd like you to keep in mind the timing of each event. During the fight, Joe nearly loses in round 4 when he gets hasty trying to put pressure on Rikiishi and eats a full force uppercut for it. He gets up on the 9 count barely and continues the fight despite being in really bad shape, whereas I would say most boxers probably couldn't stand after such a hit, or even if they could, wouldn't find it wise to continue the fight. Joe's punch that actually ends up eventually killing Rikiishi happens in round 6. Joe actually ends up getting the hit out of desperation, continually swinging, throwing his arms, while the crowd directly beforehand is telling Coach Downpay all about how he should give up and throw in the towel and that he's a murderer for making him continue fighting. This punch also comes as a result of Rikiishi panicking and being too aggressive in his strategy against Joe, trying to end it really quickly. Despite all of this, though, Joe still does lose the fight as predicted by basically everyone after they saw how the first couple rounds played out. So what does this mean? If Joe had lost in round 4, Rikiishi never would have received the killing blow in round 6. And also, despite Joe not losing in round 4 and eventually continuing in really bad condition, the result of the fight doesn't change. It stays the same. Joe still does end up losing. Rikiishi almost loses the match and is resultingly killed by a large character flaw of his, being that he tends to underestimate people and is aggressive in his overconfidence. Although to contrast this, he wins the match actually as a result of keeping his patience in the tensest moments of the fight. So really, this whole fight is building up to the idea that this whole tragedy is caused by Joe and Rikishi's unmovable resolve to settle the score in the ring. But not only that, it's also because they try to solve it in the fullest extent that they possibly can with no holds barred. Neither of them would have been happy or accepted the match being over at round 4 like it almost was. Yoko's grandfather and many others write this off as an accident over and over, but it's really just not true. Joe and Rikishi's stubbornness directly ends up killing Rikiishi. This was the inevitable result of the standoff, and the rest of the show expands on that theme. As a way of foreshadowing how the characters build off this event in the future, Joe requests multiple times to see Rikishi's dead face, whereas Yoko actually tries to cover his face back up. Of course though, Rikiishi is smiling while he's dead. He's accomplished his life's most important goal up to this point, and he's really proud of what he's done. He won his most important boxing match ever against his most important rival. Yoko hides away this feeling that she can't really understand yet at this point or sympathize with, and chooses to avoid looking at it, while Joe tries to take in as much of it as he can and understand his final sentiment, which really shapes him for the remainder of the series. The rest of the show is about him coming to understand this, which is why the scene was so meaningful to me rewatching the show. I think it goes a long ways in showing some of the great writing in the show, and hopefully giving you a little bit more to think about. Thank you very much for your time.